All right, let's just jump right in. For basically all of human history, the idea of cheating death, that was just stuff for movies and comic books, right? But something's changing. Right now, we are living at this absolutely incredible turning point where what was once fantasy is becoming, well, a very real possibility. We're talking about longevity science, and honestly, it's probably going to change everything. I mean, just think about that for a second. Really let that sink in. This isn't some far-off prediction for our great-great-grandkids. No. This means that someone who's alive right now, maybe a kid playing in a park down the street, could see the year 2150 or even beyond. The stakes? They couldn't be higher. And this whole conversation, it's not for the future. It's for today.
And look, this isn't some quiet little research project happening in a dusty corner of a university. This is a full-blown, high-stakes race. We're talking massive ambition and, you guessed it, just staggering amounts of money. So the big question is, who's actually in this race? Who are the people pushing us all towards, well, maybe immortality? First off, let's be clear. This is not a fringe idea anymore, not by a long shot. When you've got people like Jeff Bezos, Peter Thiel, and, the extreme biohacker Bryan Johnson, when these guys are pouring billions of their own money into this stuff, well, that's your signal. That tells you a huge technological shift is happening.
And it's not just these billionaires writing personal checks. Oh no, we're seeing major corporations placing massive bets on cracking the aging code. You've got companies like Altos Labs. I mean, they've basically assembled a dream team of Nobel Prize winners. Then there's Calico, which is Google's pretty secretive longevity lab, and Unity Biotechnology. These are the big players at the very forefront, and they're turning this into what could easily be a trillion-dollar industry. So you've got all this money, all this incredible brain power, and it's all aimed at one single goal: rewinding our biological clocks. But how? How does that even work? Let's get into the science of it because honestly, it is absolutely fascinating stuff. Okay, so the first big idea is something called cell reprogramming. The easiest way to think about it is like hitting a factory reset button, but for your cells. You take an old, worn-out cell and you basically turn its clock back to when it was young and healthy. Early studies are already showing this could rejuvenate tissues. It's like de-aging your body, literally one cell at a time.
All right, next up, we have to talk about zombie cells. And yes, that's what scientists actually call them sometimes. As we get older, our bodies start collecting these old, damaged cells that just refuse to die. They just hang around causing problems, like inflammation. So there's this new class of drugs called senolytics. Think of them as a highly specialized zombie hunting squad that goes in, finds these zombie cells, and takes them out, letting your healthy tissues thrive again.
And then, of course, there's gene therapy. This is where it gets really sci-fi. Using game-changing tools like CRISPR, which is kind of like a molecular pair of scissors. Scientists think they can go right into our DNA and just edit out the bad parts. The genetic glitches that make us age faster or get sick. It's almost like running a spell check on your own genetic code.
So the science, it's just breathtaking, right? It's incredible. But, and this is a huge but, for every amazing promise, there's a potential downside, a peril. Because if we actually solve aging, we might just create a whole new set of massive problems for society. Problems that, frankly, we are not ready to deal with at all.
And this really gets to the core of the dilemma. On one hand, you have the promise, a world where we can maybe wipe out horrible age-related diseases like Alzheimer's or cancer. That's the dream. On the other hand, you have the peril, a nightmare scenario, a dystopian future where only the super rich can afford to live forever, creating a literal biological class system. So let's just ask it, straight up. What actually happens to the world if living to 120 becomes the new normal? Or what if it's 150? The ripple effects from that one change, they would touch every single part of our lives.
Think about it. Our entire society, our whole social contract, is built around the idea that people live to be, 80 years old? Retirement plans, healthcare systems, when people get inheritances, even how the job market works, it's all based on that number. If you suddenly stretch that to 120 plus years, those systems, they weren't designed for that. They could just completely fall apart. And okay, beyond all the practical stuff, we are walking into a massive ethical minefield. What about overpopulation on a planet that's already strained? What about the inevitable conflicts between generations who never cede power or resources? And then there's the biggest, most existential question of all. Is dying kind of part of what makes us human? Does taking that away change us fundamentally? So, where does that leave us? Well, pretty clearly at a massive crossroads. This technology is coming. That train has left the station, ready or not. We are literally about to write the next chapter for humanity, and we have a very real choice to make about what that chapter is going to say.
And when you boil it all down, it really seems like it could go one of two ways. You have the best case scenario. These treatments become cheap and available to everyone. We extend not just lifespan, but health span for all, and we conquer disease. Then there's the worst case scenario. The treatments are insanely expensive, available only to a handful of elites, creating the biggest, deepest, and most permanent form of inequality human history has ever seen. So let's circle all the way back to the beginning, back to that person who's going to live to 150. They might be alive today, but the kind of world they're going to live in, that's not set in stone. Not yet. It's the rules, the laws, the ethical guidelines we put in place right now, in the next few years, that will decide which of those two futures we end up in.
And that brings us to the one final question that's at the heart of this whole thing. Look, it's not really a matter of if we can extend human life anymore. It's becoming a matter of when. So the real billion-dollar question we all need to start asking ourselves is, just because we can defeat aging, does that mean we should? That's the one I'll leave you with.